everybody? It's Ricky with Videohomicide, and I'm back with another movie review / recommendation. Today we're going to be taking a look at 3 films by the same director, monumental director George Romero, and those films are none other than the Dead Trilogy, the OG Dead Trilogy. There's a loose disc in Dawn of the Dead because I have a ripped version off of YouTube in here, just like a DVD-R, because this DVD is not the version that I grew up with. I'll get into Dawn of the Dead in a little bit, but I will say I am used to the Anchor Bay 2-tape VHS. That is the definitive version of Dawn of the Dead to me, personally. But we're going to start it off with, of course, the OG Night of the Living Dead, a film that sort of people have heard about or know lines from this film without even having seen the film. You know, one of the most famous lines in all of horror cinema is, "They're coming to get you, Barbara." And I love when Barbara says back to him, "Johnny, you're ignorant." Me and my dad always fucking make fun of that chick in that movie. But this is a great film, a great introduction film into horror. Like, personally, growing up, the way that my dad sort of exposed me to this stuff was like the Universal films, which he only had 4 of them. So Dracula, Frankenstein, Werewolf, and The Mummy. Those films are sort of the oldest movies I remember watching. And then it quickly went from that to like Leprechaun, Clown House, Chucky. Not so much the franchisey stuff, but like Exorcist, even though I know that is a franchise. But I didn't know there were sequels to The Exorcist until I was like a teenager. But of course, Omega Man, not exactly a horror film, but scared the shit out of me as a kid. And Westworld, you might not call a horror film, but again, I thought it was really spooky. I thought Yul Brynner is insane in that film. But this is another film that was an early introduction to me. And I always found the black and white films, like, they were either, sort of tolerable in terms of their scariness, or they were just like outright freaky. And this movie was outright freaky to me because I don't know if I saw this before Dawn of the Dead or not, but this movie to me, and along with Day of the Dead, there's like no fun. Like, they're like in Dawn of the Dead, the characters, there's parts where they're having fun. There's parts where they're eating olives out of jars and playing in the arcade and fucking around, rifling through the bank, getting huge loaves of bread, all that stuff. In this, there's like none of that. And same with Day of the Dead, there's even less. But just Night of the Living Dead, so classic. Ben, the character of Ben, I think is one of my favorite characters in movie history. Had his shit together. I even love the asshole guy in the basement, Cooper. And shout out to Tony Todd, rest in peace, Tony Todd. And for those of you that don't know, or you might only know the Tom Savini version of Night of the Living Dead. So this is the Romero, this is the Savini version. Of course, Tom Savini did makeup effects in so many of Romero's films, Dawn of the Dead, Creepshow, just to name a few, Day of the Dead, of course. But this movie has the scene in the basement with like the little girl killing her mom with that sound effect. Like, I know that this movie kind of got quickly put into public domain and all that, and I don't think Romero made a shitload of money off this flick, even though it's very notorious. But the score is definitely, sticks out to me. And even when you see like people's short films or other movies that outright use the sound, I've used the soundtrack from this film, the score and shit, in my short films. But I think it just really sticks out. I love when we get it's right there on the cover actually, when Barbara's brother comes back in the form of a zombie to attack the house. And there's so many good parts in this film. Obviously, when they go upstairs and that head's on the floor, that reveal, love that shit. There's a lot of just, it's a different vibe because these zombies are more like determined, and like they're like that first zombie you see in the graveyard. The first thing he does is grabs a fucking brick and smashes it against the fucking car window. Like that would not happen in Day of the Dead, or in that, maybe in Day of the Dead, but definitely not in Dawn of the Dead. They were dunces in Dawn of the Dead. But I think sort of my favorite thing about Night of the Living Dead is that I put it up there with movies like Last Man on Earth with Vincent Price, and House on Haunted Hill with Vincent Price, a lot of Vincent Price stuff. But like those types of horror films from the 60s that still held on to like a little bit of like that. I wouldn't call it Hammerish, I wouldn't call it Universal, but like they are like the horror films before my favorite era of horror began, which was like the 70s, late 60s, early 70s. I think that's where some of my favorite stuff I'm like last night, me and my wife, my girlfriend, we were fucking hosting to another couple. We were hanging out in the backyard having a fire and all this, and the boyfriend was like, "Oh, I've never seen this. I've never seen that." I'm like, "Dude," I'm like, because he's like, "I'm not big into horror." I was like, "Man, Exorcist is a good film," and like it's because I think he thinks it's like a little goofy or something. He might get like later Freddy Krueger vibes. You know what I mean? Those later films, like no. Like watch Rosemary's Baby, watch Exorcist, watch The Omen, watch. There's so many good films from that time period, like late 60s into like the late 70s. I just think is awesome, man. There's so much good stuff. Everything from like the best Fulci and Argento to the best Romero and the best fucking who else, name it. Like there's that's the thing, like you can't really see this wall right here, but it's all VHS. Like all like my choicest VHS tapes are here and along the top lip. So like that's where I have this right here, the 2-tape Dawn of the Dead. This is the one. There's actually a photo of me holding this up like this when I was a kid. So really stoked about that. Trying to wrap up my thoughts on Night of the Living Dead. I think it's a must watch. Obviously, I don't think it's as exciting or memorable as Dawn of the Dead, but it's definitely classic, and it definitely deserves the respect that it has and the status it has in the world of horror films. Especially, it's an independent horror film from back then. Like this movie was made for not a lot of money. It was sort of stitched together. Like you hear stories about the guy that made, and I'm rusty on these films, but the guy that made Phantasm, what's his name again? Don Coscarelli. So there's the first one. This is actually the second one. I've never even watched, or I've watched Phantasm on this DVD right here. So this is a DVD-R, but this is Pet Sematary 1 and 2 and House 1 and 2. But I have one of these that has the first 4 Phantasms. Who the fuck knows where it is? But apparently he stitched together that first Phantasm. Like he was making it like on weekends, like over the course of like a couple of years, and shit would hit the fan, and crazy stories. Like that's the thing that's interesting to me about independent filmmaking, especially back then, because they were really just going off the fucking seat of their pants, right? And you got to give a big shout out to Tobe Hooper, who Texas Chainsaw Massacres. I actually just watched that the other night. Showed my dog I actually got a new puppy. His name's Onyx. So Ollie, he has a little brother. It's really fucking cute. They're like best buddies already. So that's awesome. I'll definitely showcase him off in a video soon enough, but maybe on a live stream when I can get him to just come in and then take off on his leisure. But let's move on to 1978, I believe, directed by George Romero, of course. Dawn of the Dead. Okay, this is the George Romero film for me. I love a lot of stuff that he's done, but Dawn of the Dead, particularly that 2-tape edition, I think it's probably a perfect film. It's one of my favorite. It's a top 5, not just horror film, but like top 5 film. Like if someone said to me, "Hey, do you want to like fucking smoke dope all day and watch Good, the Bad, and the Ugly and Dawn of the Dead 2-tape edition from Anchor Bay?" And the not the fucking extended cut of Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. I know that may be blasphemy to some, but the extended cut, it doesn't really do much for me. The only scene I would keep would be the scene where Tuco is talking. He like goes to his old homies like hangout, and he's like talking. He's like, I know a place where I can get $4,000 and like all that shit. And I would give $1,000 to all of my old friends. Like I love Tuco, Eli Wallach, amazing actor. But I'm talking about Dawn of the Dead. Like I said, Dawn of the Dead is a fun one. It starts off hardcore. I love it. When I was a kid, I was always like, not confused, but I was always like, what? Like this feels like so many different types of movies. With that start off in the projects where, they're raiding the project, like all that, like that is like one of my favorite moments out of many moments in the film. But like that just stands out because like not only are you getting like this cop versus like bad guy action, but it's interlaced with all these zombies. Amazing headshot scene. That asshole Wooly boots the fucking door in and just blows that fucker's head off. I actually want to do a piece. I actually have been planning for since I did Vomit Coffin, which is like an Evil Dead meets Cheech and Chong vibe. I want to do the same thing, but with Dawn of the Dead. I've been plotting out some stories and stuff, but I definitely I want to do a page of like Filthy Ralph and Little Ricky version, basically, of that scene where Wooly boots the door in. and just sort of make it like a Tom Bunk, completely cover like an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper with like little drawing, like a little rat, cigarette butts, empty bottle of booze knocked over on the floor, ashtray, all that bullshit. There's a fucking dart in the wall. One guy's like arm has like a fucking bandage around it, like all that shit. Shout out to Tom Bunk, man. Amazing artist. Did a lot of stuff, I believe, in the early days of Garbage Pail Kids in terms of the back of the cards, all those little artworks and stuff, as well as a lot of his work contributions to Mad Magazine over the years. Matter of fact, in the stores right now, there's like this horror issue, and there's like a 2-page spread of a Tom Bunk piece. It's like $17.99 Canadian. Like, fuck you. I'm not paying $17.99 for a fucking Mad Magazine. But I would pay $17.99 for Dawn of the Dead. Matter of fact, I have a second copy of Dawn of the Dead on DVD that I kept the price tag on because it's too good to be true. $2. I'm probably not gonna be able to see that. $2. And this is weird. This is different because it's like gold. The other one's straight yellow. So, anyways, getting into Dawn of the Dead, like I said, the project scene I absolutely love. I love the first arrival at the mall. Me and my dad always like talked because like my dad like loves Spam. When they find the Spam, but like it's corned beef, but like they call it something else here. Like it like not they don't call it something else, but there was this particular brand he used to get and it had the key. So that scene when they get up to the top of that mall and he hands over the fucking Spam, she goes, "Oh, if I had pots and pans, I would have cooked you breakfast." And Roger goes, Roger says, "Don't knock it, it's got its own key." So the old man always says that shit, but obviously getting into some more of the actiony scenes, the first sort of Flyboy, Roger, Peter going into the mall and their different situations and just like raiding the mall for all this stuff. Like how cool would it be, like minus the zombie apocalypse, you could just raid a mall, and just like take whatever you want. Like I love how like he's like well, later on in the film, when the bikers raid the place, the one guy grabs the TV and the one guy goes, "What the hell are you gonna watch on that thing?" It's like, what are you gonna plug that in the back of the motorcycle and watch fucking Happy Days or Days of Our Lives or some shit? Don't know, but obviously you've got some fun moments like I mentioned earlier when they're in the arcade and all that stuff, and Peter's trying on an old filthy hat and he's eating olives. I don't know why I always think that olive scene, he like takes a little sip. You're guilty of doing that. If you act like you've never taken a little sip out of either an olive jar or like a good pickle jar, you're a goddamn liar, and I don't believe you. But just the amount of fun they're having, and obviously one scene that I cannot forget to talk about is the scene where Roger sort of loses his shit and ends up getting himself bit. And Peter has that awesome line where he's like, you're not just fucking with your life, you're playing with mine. And sort of gives him a smack around, but then he ends up getting bit. And like that's sort of like, that's where the movie stops being fun. And like you can even tell with the characters, you know what I mean? Like it's just Peter's going apeshit playing tennis on the roof. At least Flyboy's got his chick and all that, but she's pregnant. And Peter has that line earlier. He's like, "Oh, your wife's pregnant, eh?" He's like, "Do you want to keep it, or do you want to get rid of it, or some bullshit like that?" I know how. I love the episode of 22 Shots of Moods and Horror. JP points that out, and I laugh at that because like I always point that out when I watch the film because that's like a fucking. And JP even says like, "How do you know?" And like that's my question. How the fuck do you know how to do that? But obviously when excuse me, you got so many memorable zombies. I sort of forgot to mention, like in the first one, in Night of the Living Dead, favorite zombie is probably that main zombie in the cemetery. Dawn of the Dead, I really like the plaid shirt zombie. You only see him for like a couple of seconds, but I love that guy. I think he looks great. Obviously, like the Hare Krishna zombie is cool looking, but like is not bloody. You have some really good effects in this film. Obviously, all the headshots, all the excellent sort of blood spray. I like the way the blood looks in this film. People talk shit about the blood in this movie. I think it looks great. It's very like fluorescent, like acrylic red paint type blood. I think the blood in Day of the Dead looks more real, but I have no problem with it. I don't have a problem with the blueness of the zombies or the grayness, whatever you want to call it. I think they look great. Obviously, I wish every zombie in the film had the dedication of makeup on them as like the plaid shirt zombie. And there's even that one blonde-haired zombie that I believe attacks Roger in the truck. I think she's the one that bites him actually, but great amount of detail on that makeup job. There's a bunch peppered throughout, and obviously the machete into the head is great later on with the siege of the bikers. you know, and craftiness with those guys like blocking off that wall, you know, like just like, here, we're gonna drywall this wall up, no one's gonna know it's here, and like that is, you know, Flyboy is probably runner up for favorite zombie, just because, you know, I feel like he knew he had to make his memorable, and just everything he did, his foot is fucking completely twisted, it looks fucked, you know, he's carrying the gun and he's just bleeding and it just looks like shit, and it's like, because I feel like when you start off the film, it's Flyboy sort of like he's sort of like the Chief Brody from Jaws, you know what I mean? Like that's sort of, he's not like, he can't shoot, he can't do any of this bullshit, and you got like Peter and Roger, total like OG manly men SWAT guys. So but by the end you're like really rooting for this guy. I was always rooting for Flyboy in one way or the other, but especially by the end of the film when he gets killed, you feel bad. Like that's, Roger really hurt, but Flyboy I think hurt a little bit more because, you know, you don't see it coming really. I know we've all seen these movies a million fucking times, but still there's certain scenes you anticipate. It's like, it's almost like you want to watch Dawn of the Dead, but you want to skip Roger's death, or like when Roger gets bit, because it's too like, oh, why? Like, you're so careless, you cocksucker. Again, Tom Savini did an amazing job. I love the biker siege. That's probably my, you know, other than like the project housing siege, I think the biker gang siege is my favorite parts of the film. So moving on to the final installment. I've only got like 3 minutes left to talk here. Day of the Dead. Definitely the filthiest, the grimiest, the most uncomfortable of the films. I think some of the best characters out of Romero's Dead Trilogy, original Dead Trilogy, came from this film. Steel, Rhodes, Dr. Frankenstein, the drunkard guy that fucking, you know, Buddy Steele says, lay off the fucking booze for a while and get someone on the horn pronto. I'm gonna have to lay off the fucking booze, Steele, pretty soon, because there's gonna be no fucking booze fucking left. Like, me and old man quote that all the time. Captain Rhodes, so quotable in this film. One of my favorites is, I'm running this monkey farm now, Frankenstein, and I want to know what the fuck you're doing with my time. Or you just back there jerking each other off. Like, fuck, the guy's OG. This is an example of like my complaint about the zombies all not having like a huge level of dedication on the makeup. That's out the window on this, because every zombie is made up to the fucking nines, you know, and there's every type of person. Like in that first one, you see like a nun, a Hare Krishna zombie, and that's basically it. In this, there's like a football player, there's a clown, there's fucking greasy, all kinds of stuff, man. Like there's so many memorable zombies. Of course, you can't talk about this movie without talking about Bub. Bub is actually not my favorite zombie in this film. I think that my favorite zombie is who's known as Dr. Tongue. You know, it's this like character that's tongue just like falls out of his face. Really fucking awesome. Favorite parts in this film, I really like the opener of this movie, because it sets the tone. And like, there's that one newspaper, my dad was always like, I'd love to have a copy of that. It says like The Dead Walk, you know, and it's just floating down the street. There's an alligator, all kinds of stuff. But definitely that scene where they go to get the zombie out of this cave, and like Steele and like Rickles, they're like really fucking assholes. He's like, hey, fucking A, biggest piece of meat in the cave. And like all that shit, like throwbacks all got big dicks, like fucking A, Rickles. And when Rickles almost gets killed, Steele grabs a hold of this fucking guy that's lost his mind. He goes, you almost killed Rickles. Yeah. Love that shit, man. Really, really standout film. Obviously, the second time they go to retrieve zombies, Greg Nicotero is actually one of the actors, and he gets ripped to shit. Another guy gets shot to shit. Or gets his neck ripped out, and then he gets shot. Rickles gets fucked over. Rhodes gets it bad. He gets like his guts ripped out, which was apparently a very hard fucking scene to film for him, because they're using like real actual guts. They reek. I work at a slaughterhouse. I know the smell of fucking, just when it's hot too. Like if it was hot in there and you're smelling that shit, you'd be vomiting. Like you would not be able to not vomit. But yeah, Rickles gets his eyeball pulled out, I think, if I remember correctly. But this is actually the Scream Factory version of this film, so lots of good documentaries and stuff on there. But I also want to say that on the back of there's a commentary with George Romero, Tom Savini, Chris Romero, and Perry Martin on the that particular version of Dawn of the Dead. I know there's a bunch more. I'm trying to talk fast because I gotta end this shit. I appreciate everybody for watching, you know, leaving comments, checking out the artwork, all that stuff. The dollar store sketchbook continues. With that being said, leave a 666 in the comments. Buy Cinema 1 zines. Buy Cinema 187 zines. Buy the Filthy Ralph comics. Message me at cinema.187, or my link to my website's in the bottom of this. Peace out.